I am waking up to find my world between the dying and being reborn. I see what is and I see what could be. Can't close my eyes again and go back to sleep. Days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. How can I change our course? Just a lonely voice. Wish I could lose myself in all the noise. But if we all would rise, a generation proud with a mighty song, we could turn this world around. So fill my days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. Fill my days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. All behind and before me every child. I bring the power of a long unbroken line. So when our time is through, I want to know, did what we came to do for the future ones. So in our darkest days, may we all be strong and give our lives so life may go on. Fill my days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel. Fill my days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. Fill my days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. Fill my days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide.
We turn now to Jen in our bell tower, who is just about ready to ring our bells. Jen, we need you to unmute, though. Jen, we need you to unmute. There we go. Thank you.
deal.
Coming close to solstice. We've got our solstice badger.
Let's get it on. Welcome to our beloved sanctuary, as well as to our digital sanctuary on Zoom. My name's Ellie Jarrell. I'm happy to see you all, and I hope you had a wonderful Turkey Day. Many thanks to Mary Beth Noonan, who's our camera point person today, and to Jennifer Bottomley, who's our Zoom usher. Those of you who are here in person, we ask that you keep your mask on at all times while indoors. The worship leaders may take off their masks at the mic when distanced. People of all ages are welcome to move about in the sanctuaries they need to, and coloring sheets are available at either entryway. Children's programming for elementary school age kids will begin today after our time for all ages. Our child care provider, Shannon, is available to accompany nursery age children to our nursery room in the parish hall at any time. As we begin our service today, we acknowledge that our church was built on the ancestral, unceded land of the Massachusetts people. We acknowledge the devastating legacy of settler colonialism and the continuing harm done to Indigenous groups in our community and beyond. May our commitment to justice, equity, and compassion call us to take meaningful, restorative action to honor and protect the land and all her people. We invite all of you to bring your perspectives, your beliefs and doubts, and all that is unique and wondrous about you to our service. In the spirit of love, all are welcome here. If you're new to Theodore Parker Church or visiting today, we'd love to stay in touch. You're invited to fill out a connection card, which will give you an opportunity to sign up for our weekly newsletter, weekly updates, and help us welcome you. A link to the connection card will be in the chat, as well as our contact information. Those joining us here in the sanctuary are encouraged to fill in the contact card, which you'll find in your pews, which Tori's holding up, within the bright yellow pamphlet. We'd like to offer a moment for those joining us remotely to greet those of us who are here in person. So, Mary Beth, could you please put the sanctuary screen in gallery view so we can see our offsite congregation? I can't see if they're there. Are they there? Folks joining us on Zoom, give us a wave if you'd like. And the folks in the sanctuary, the camera is behind you, just below the clock. Let's give a big wave and hello to the folks joining us remotely. Okay, wonderful. It's good to be together. We hope that each of you will find some comfort to carry over the week and some challenge for your thoughts. As always, we wish for each of you health, well-being, and a sense of peace. As our pianist Yukiko Takagi brings us into worship with the tango composition Ciao Paris by Astor Piazzolla, we bid you welcome.
Thank you, Yukiko, and welcome back to our Sanctuary Incarnate. We're so glad to have you back. Our music director, Michael, is off on a well-earned day off today, so it's especially good to have you holding down the musical fort today. So good to be together. Our opening words today are adapted from Reverend Kathleen McTeague. Here in the refuge of this Sabbath home, we turn our busy minds toward silence and our full hearts toward one another. We move together through the mysteries, the bright surprise of birth and the shadowed questions of death. In our slow journey between the two, we will be wounded and we will be showered with grace, amazing, unending. Even in our sorrows, we feel our lives cradled in holiness we cannot comprehend. And though we each journey within a vast loneliness, the promise we offer here is that we do not journey alone. This is a holy place in which we gather, the light of the earth brought in and held, touched then by our own answering light. The flame on a chalice, the flicker of a candle, the lamps of our open faces brought near. In this place of silence and celebration, solemnity and music, we make a sanctuary and name our home. It is good to be together. So we raise our voices in an opening hymn. This morning, it's number 145 as Tranquil Streams, which you'll find in your gray hymnals. Marion Franklin Ham wrote this lyric in 1933 in advance of the publication of the first hymnal that was shared by the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America, Hymns of the Spirit. I think we still might have a stack of them up in the balcony up there. This hymn was intentionally written to celebrate the growing relationship between the two denominations who were finding it useful to work together. As the final votes were cast and a new combined Unitarian Universalist Association was formed, the assembled sang this very singable hymn together. Today we'll sing verses 1, 3, and 4. We didn't know if we've ever sung it here before in recent memory, so we'll have Yukiko play it through once so we'll be able to hear it before we join in singing. I invite you to rise in body, in spirit, and in voice as we sing together. You may be seated. Each week we light our flaming chalice, a symbol of Unitarian Universalist community, with words of shared covenant, of shared promise. We'll say them together first in English, led by Ellie, and then I'll lead us in the Spanish translation, which we say in honor of our sister community in Plazuelas, El Salvador. The words will be up in your screen, and we invite you to join in saying them with us together.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia y el servicio es nuestra oración. Esta es nuestra gran promesa, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad con amor y ayudarnos los unos a los otros. I now welcome up our Lifespan religious educator, Rose, to share with us a story for today.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here. I love these quiet post-holiday Sundays. There's just a nice coziness to it. So I have a story to share with you all this morning that will be shown in pictures up on the screen. It's called Here and Now by Julia Denos, and it's written really as a meditation. The story itself is a meditation. So before I bring it up, I invite you to just take a moment to center yourself, sort of be ready to receive what comes. Here and now. Right here, right now, you are reading this book. The book is in your lap, or in your hands, or someone else's. You are sitting, or you are standing, or you are wrapped up in a bed. Under your bum, under your feet is a seat, a floor, or a cloud if you're on an airplane. And under all of those things is the earth, the grass and the dirt, the earthworms and the fossils, the rocks. And the earth is spinning in the middle of space. We don't know why, but it is. And you are too. Right here, right now, while you are reading this book, many, many things are happening. Rain is forming in the belly of a cloud. An ant has finished its home on the other side of the planet. Somewhere, a telephone is ringing. An idea is blooming. Grass is pushing through cement. A friend you haven't met yet is sitting down to dinner. There are animals, wild ones and tame, living and breathing all around you. Muscles are growing, cities are growing, babies are growing. Cuts and broken bones are sewing up and healing. Unseen work is being done. Right here, right now, you are becoming. Isn't it wonderful? Thank you.
Thank you, Rose, for that meditation and story. You know, it helped me get a little centered this morning. With that spirit in our hearts, we'll sing a hymn to center us even deeper. This one is number 318, We Would Be One, which is set to the tune known as Finlandia by Sibelius. It's another hymn that comes from the time of our merger. The lyrics were written by a young adult Unitarian minister named Samuel Anthony Wright for the youth at the Continental Convention of 1953, where the two youth groups merged, setting a model for the adults to follow 8 years later. As we sing today, I invite us to notice all of those things we might not pay attention to on a daily basis, appreciate them, and notice that we are here together as one. I invite you to rise in body, rise in spirit as we sing hymn number 318, We Would Be One. Be seated. I invite you to join me in a time of meditation and prayer. First in words, then in a slightly longer silence today. And then we'll come back together with the sound of a chime. Our meditation today is called The Stars Around Us by Terry Cummings. Great Spirit, whose reflection we will never see in the waters, who listens to me and watches me in silence, I lift up my heart and my prayers to you. I know that each of us contain stardust left over from when time first began. I ask that our stardust be joined together to form a new star, a star whose light will reach into all of the places where suffering and fear exist, so that together we may be that light, that star which points the way to freedom. Fueled by all of our love, the warmth of our star will touch the coldest of human hearts. Great Spirit, I hope and pray that our star will be one of the many new stars in a new Milky Way. May our star and all of the stars around me shine brightly until all anger and hatred, fear and want fade away into the darkness of the universe. May it be so. We share now in a few minutes of meditative quiet. So may it be.
Generosity is the spiritual practice in our Unitarian Universalist congregations. We give to remind ourselves of how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with gratitude for all that we have been given, and with the faith that together we have more than enough. Links to donate will be in the chat, or you can take a meditative moment out writing out a check and sending it to the church after the service. Ushers will be coming around the sanctuary to collect an offering from those in the pews who wish to donate something more tangible. As Yukiko shares Plus Ultra by Astor Piazzolla, an offering to sustain this congregation of memory and hope will be gratefully received. Thank you. Our reading today is Living Wide Open by Dawn Markova. I will not die an unlived life. I will not live in fear of falling or catching fire. I choose to inhabit my days, to allow my living to open me, to make me less afraid, more accessible, to loosen my heart until it becomes a wing, a torch, a promise. I choose to risk my significance, to live so that which came to me as seed goes to the next as blossom, and that which came to me as blossom goes on as fruit.
Thank you, Ellie. There are some poems that, like songs or scripture verses, make their way under my skin. Their words come back to me in mundane moments, making coffee or an oatmeal for breakfast, and in moments when I'm trying to make a choice. That poem by Donna Markova is one that just always gets me. I heard it within a few months of first attending a UU congregation in the beginning of my time at Arlington Street Church. My spirit lifted when I first heard it, especially that part toward the end about living so that the things that I touch come into fuller bloom for those who come after me. Muppets creator Jim Henson put the idea simply, I want to leave the world a better place than I found it. So much can be said on each line of the poem, but it's the line in the middle of the poem that's always eluded me. I choose to risk my significance. Risk your significance. Significance is being worthy of attention, of being important. And the poem has always reminded me of my own significance, about the possibility that my life has to be of significance. So what could it mean to risk my significance? The poem has worked its way into my life over these past several years, helping it bloom into something that I want to pass on to future generations. But this line in the middle has stuck out like a thorny bush on a walkway, the one that always snags your sweater when you walk by and makes you stop when you're oblivious. So let's consider it. What if risking our significance meant removing our own ego and reputation from an end result? What if it meant doing something that could leave the world a better place than we found it without needing to be recognized for it? Author Annie Dillard tells this story. She writes, when I was 6 or 7 years old, growing up in Pittsburgh, I used to take a precious penny of my own and hide it for someone else to find. It was a curious compulsion. For some reason, I always hid the penny along the same stretch of sidewalk up the street. I would cradle it in the roots of a sycamore, say, or in a hole left by a chipped off piece of sidewalk. Then I would take a piece of chalk and, starting at either end of the block, draw huge arrows leading up to the penny from both directions. After I learned to write, I labeled the arrows, surprise ahead, or money this way. I was greatly excited during all of this arrow drawing at the thought of the first lucky passerby who would receive in this way, regardless of merit, a free gift from the universe. But I never lurked about. I would go straight home and not give the matter another thought until some months later I would be gripped again by the impulse to hide another penny. A child taking such joy in creating joy for another, but not needing to be there to see the result or to be recognized for it. She chooses to risk her significance, to live so that which came to her as seed goes to the next as blossom, and that which came to her as blossom goes on as fruit. What of our justice work? What might it mean to risk our significance as we work to change systems of oppression? I don't know how many of you experience this, but so often when I look at a justice issue and think about how I can leave the world a better place than I found it, my mind goes to projects that I could start, actions I could design. You know, the kind of actions where it's significant that I somehow did something to make the situation better. I hope I'm not alone in this. I think in many ways it has to do with the way that we present our heroes. Social and political activist Paul Rogat-Loeb offers up the example of Rosa Parks. The story many of us may have heard about her goes something like, Rosa Parks was the woman who wouldn't go to the back of the bus. She wouldn't get up and give her seat in the white section to a white person. That set in motion the year-long bus boycott in Montgomery, and it earned Rosa Parks the title of Mother of the Civil Rights Movement. For sure, Parks' action of not giving up her seat was one that left the world a better place than she found it. By taking action and being willing to be arrested for it, she lived so that which came to her as seed went on to the next as blossom. But Loeb reminds us that when we tell her story in this way, we create a standard so impossible to meet that it might actually make it harder and more intimidating to get involved in justice work. It makes it seem like social activists come out of nowhere to suddenly take dramatic actions. It implies that we act with the greatest impact when we act alone, that change occurs instantly, as opposed to building on a series of often invisible actions. The myth of Rosa Parks as a lone activist reinforces a notion that anyone who takes a committed public position, or at least an effective one, has to be a larger-than-life figure, someone with more time, energy, courage, vision, or knowledge than any normal person could possess. This belief pervades our society, in part because the media tends not to represent historical change as the work of ordinary human beings, which it almost always is. Before refusing to give up her bus seat, Parks had been active for 12 years in the local NAACP chapter, serving as its secretary. The summer before her arrest, she attended a 10-day training at Tennessee's Labor and Civil Rights Organizing School, the Highlander Center, where she'd met an older generation of civil rights activists and learned about the wins and successes of previous actions challenging segregation. In short, Rosa Parks didn't make a spur-of-the-moment decision. She didn't single-handedly give birth to the civil rights movement. She was part of an existing movement for change at a time when success was far from certain. She was someone who showed up and kept showing up. This in no way diminishes the power and historical importance of Parks' refusal to give up her seat. But it reminds us that this tremendously consequential act, along with everything that followed, depended on all of the humble and frustrating work that Parks and others undertook earlier on. It also reminds us that Parks' initial step of getting involved was just as courageous and critical an action as that on the bus that all of us have heard about. To risk your significance is to show up time after time and be willing to keep taking the small actions that, with others, add up to great power and change. To risk your significance is what the indie rock band The Fleet Foxes describes in a song called Helplessness Blues, with the lyric, "I was raised up believing I was somehow unique, distinct like a snowflake, distinct among snowflakes, unique in each way you can see. And now after some thinking, I'd say I'd rather be a functioning cog in some great machinery, serving something beyond me." To risk your significance is to be more interested in being part of a movement far beyond ourselves, and to be willing to put in the humble and necessary work of showing up and being useful. In my heart and mind, that first poem, I Will Not Die an Unlived Life, is partnered with Marge Piercy's poem, To Be of Use. The poem reads in part, I love people who harness themselves an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well done has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn are put in museums, but you know that they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real. And now is a time that is ripe to be of use. Whatever the issue is that's most touching your heart, perhaps start there. My heart has been so heavy since I learned about last weekend's shooting at the Club Q nightclub in Colorado, simultaneously feeling unsurprised by another mass shooting in our country, but also feeling the deep horror of mass murder taking place in what should have been a queer safe haven. The process of writing this sermon has helped me move from a feeling of kind of checked out despair to one of finding ways to be of use, even if only in small ways right now. Let's hold ourselves accountable to getting involved in work that we find important. Right now, for me, this week, it looks like donating to organizations that support the queer and trans community beyond this tragedy. I personally chose the Trevor Project and the Marsha P. Johnson Institute. There's a lot to choose from. Sending love notes to queer and trans friends. Getting more training in de-escalation and community safety so that I can connect more with local groups that are looking for additional support at protests and actions. And following advocacy groups on social media who are working for an end to gun violence, and contacting my legislators when important bills come up. None of these are huge things, but as my colleague Aisha Ansana once said to me, they lead to potentially larger things, and those things matter to me. And sharing it aloud here helps me be accountable not only to myself, but to all of you. And so, my beloveds, where are you willing to risk your significance? To be a functioning cog in some great machinery, serving something beyond us. To be of use. We will not die unlived lives. We will not live in fear of falling or catching fire. We choose to inhabit our days, to allow our living to open us, to make us less afraid, more accessible, to loosen our hearts until they become wings, torches, promises. We choose to risk our significance, to live so that which came to us as seed goes to the next as blossom, and that which came to us as blossom goes to the next as fruit. So may it be, and amen. Our closing hymn today is number 1014 in your teal hymnals, Answering the Call of Love, though you'll find it under its older title, Standing on the Side of Love. It's written by Reverend Jason Shelton. And this is a hymn which fit both the theme of today's sermon and I dedicate in honor of all of the queer and trans folks whose hearts are hurting, who are reaching out for support, and for all of us, regardless of identity, who are siding with love and answering a call to love even more. I invite you to rise in body or rise in spirit as we raise our voices and sing Answering the Call of Love. You may be seated. I share a few announcements and invitations, ways to stay connected with the life of this community beyond Sunday mornings. Following our postlude, which is one more piece by Astor Piazzolla called Libertango, we'll have time for sharing our joys and sorrows in community, followed, I believe, by a coffee hour in the parish hall. All are welcome. Coming up next week on Saturday night, we have our first concert back in the parish hall from the Music on Center series since the spring of 2020. That's pretty exciting. It'll be held Saturday night at 7:30 in the parish hall. Big thanks to Carol Allen for bringing that back. We'll be bringing a nationally known performer, Kate Campbell, coming in from Nashville. We hope to get a great audience, both to support her, to connect with our local community, and to help pay for the expenses of bringing in this artist. We hope you'll join in. If you're able to bring in some baked goods, please talk with Carol Allen, either at coffee hour, or you can email musiconcenter, that's CENTRE, @gmail.com to volunteer. Thank you so much. The following Sunday, while I'm recuperating from bidding adieu to a problematic gallbladder, we'll be bringing in a great guest preacher, Reverend Joe Murphy, who is the director of UU Mass Action, who used to work here, I believe, as our religious education exploration coordinator. Here's a fun story. Reverend Joe Murphy and I both served as a time for the UU chaplain at Wellesley College. She was there before I was. When I started, our students started calling me Joe the Current and her Joe the Former. And I just love that here we are also having occupied the same chancel, Joe the Current, Joe the Former, bringing her back to be Sunday's Joe the Current in the pulpit. So please come and welcome her back and hear a great message she has to share. And then plan to stick around. From 12 to 1, our ministerial search committee will be doing an informational meeting right here to kind of give you an update on where we're at with the search process. They've just hit a major milestone of submitting their congregational record to the UUA, 55 essay questions, beautifully written. Major kudos. So please plan to come and spend some time with us next Sunday here. All right, our closing words today are from Reverend Norman V. Naylor. Our eyes and minds turn now toward the ordinary, leaving this space made sacred by our presence. Take with you some seed of understanding, hope, and courage, and drop it into the confusion of the world. Nourish the seed that it might grow as a tree of life, giving shelter to the weary and hope to the despairing. Be yourself a branch on the tree of life. Amen. I'm so disappointed nobody danced a tango to that. Come on, y'all. Thank you, Yukiko.
We know that whenever we gather as a community, we come with joys and sorrows, hopes and prayers on our hearts, and these can be held in our community, burdens lightened and joys multiplied. If you have a joy or a concern that you'd like to share, you're welcome, if you're here in person, to come on up, or if you need us to bring the mic with you to you, just raise your hand and we'll bring it. If you're joining us on Zoom, you're welcome to use the raise hand feature, and I will call upon you, and then you should be welcome to unmute when you're ready. Can we have the gallery view up on the big screen?